Hey guys, for today's video, I'll be going over Truffle and Filbert, who's one of, if not the best support in Dual Knight Abyss. I'll be going over her kits, then her wedges, then her best melee weapons, her best ranged weapons, her teams, and then her introns. Starting off with her kits, to summarize, Truffle and Filbert increase all allies' skill damage tremendously, they heal for a good amount, and they do considerable skill damage with their ultimates. But using their ultimates will only be a viable yet inferior playstyle when she's at C6, compared to her supportive playstyle of spamming her skills, because she mostly wants to maintain her massive damage buff and heal allies. For her skill, she makes Filbert charge at enemies, dealing anemo damage in a path and doing endpoint damage. This skill is going to do virtually no damage, but it'll be good because it can also heal allies and provide up to an 89% damage boost for 6 seconds, which is going to be pretty much the sole reason for why she is such a powerful and versatile support. For her ultimate, she gets to ride on Filbert and exclusively do skill damage when she bumps into enemies and when she attacks with them. These attacks are going to do pretty respectable sub DPS, especially when she uses the insane speed boost she gets when she charges her skill in exchange for sanity during her ultimate to bump into a ton of enemies. The speed boost is also going to be really good for her ultimate uptime, because in order to keep this ultimate up, she's gonna have to bump into an enemy to gain 1 point of passion for work, which she loses 5 of every second, meaning that the speed boost she gets when charging on Filbert is going to allow her to rapidly bump into multiple enemies and gain passion for work points faster than she can lose them. Also, you can use her ultimate again to end her ultimate and do her basic skill, which is going to be good for activating her damage buffs when you know your ultimate is about to end. Now, when you're riding on Filbert, you can use her skill that provides the majority of her supportive capabilities, like her damage stats and healing, meaning that you'll pretty much never want to use her ultimate because her supportive capabilities tend to outweigh her sub DPS value. For her passive, she gains 1 out of 10 heavyweight stacks that increases her damage by up to 10% and decreases her damage taken by up to 2% when moving, meaning that if you want to do 100% more damage and take 20% less damage, you're gonna want to constantly stay active. For her passive upgrade, she has a 10% chance of dropping an ammo supply chest when doing skill damage, meaning that she's going to be an insanely good ammo regenerator for ranged weapon-based DPS characters. For her other passive upgrade, she provides a 5% resolve boost, which is going to be really good with characters like Psyche or Outsider, because they do the majority of their damage when their HP is low. For her skill priority, you're gonna want to level up her skill, then her ultimate, and then her passive, because her skill provides all of her supportive capabilities, which are of higher priority than her sub DPS, because her ultimate provides most of her sub DPS capabilities, and because her passive increases that sub DPS, but not as much as just leveling up her ultimate multipliers. Anyways, how do you actually apply all of this information? Well, all this means is that you're gonna want to use her skill frequently if you want to support your allies, since the damage boost only lasts for 6 seconds. But if you're feeling violent, you're gonna want to use her ultimate and just boop into enemies to do damage and restore passion for work points. You're also gonna want to use her speed boost at the cost of her sanity only when necessary or when it's really effective, because you can quickly run out of sanity if you spam it a lot. Anyways, for her character Wedges, she's gonna want the vigilance for her core because it improves her survivability. For her first slot, she's gonna want the prime serenity because it restores a good amount of sanity for her allies, and it restores enough sanity for her to constantly use her charge attack. But you can also use the prime uplift because it's also a good supportive option. For her second slot, she's gonna want a Phoenix Nirvana because she wants a ton of HP for her damage and healing. For her third slot, she's gonna want a 5-star Siren's Wings because it helps her spam her skills to maintain her skill buffs and heal, or spam her charged skill to maintain her ultimate and do more damage. For her 4th through 7th slot, you're gonna want the Wings Eternity so that you can spam her skills to maintain her skill buffs and heal, or spam her charged skill to maintain her ultimate and do more damage. For her 8th slot, you're gonna want the Griffin's Midnight Sun because it increases her heals and buff duration. For Wings Eternity alternatives, you can substitute one of them with a Phoenix Wings, because it can be better than the Wings Eternity if the match only lasts for around 1 minute. You can also substitute them with the Panthe's Eternity if the match lasts for more than 2 minutes, and you can substitute some Wings of Eternity with a Saphir or a Phoenix Blaze for more healing and damage. You can also substitute one of them with the Cyclone if you're running her with Psyche or Outsider. For her best melee weapons, she's gonna want the Undying on Arrows or the Punitive Inferno because they increase her max HP by 100%, which is going to be really good because that's what her healing and damage scales off of. For her melee wedges, I believe she's gonna want the Penetration for spike attack, the Celerity for attack speed, a 5-star Rage Trammel for crit damage and trigger probability, the vigilance for crit damage, the brutality for attack speed, a 4-star rage for crit damage, a 4-star trammel for trigger probability, and a 4-star focus for crit chance. These wedges will increase her spike attack speed, trigger probability, and crit by a tremendous amount, which will be good for her very small sub DPS. For her best ranged weapons, she's gonna want the Arclight Apocalypse or the Blue Current Pulse because they provide 30% skill duration. For her ranged wedges, I believe she's gonna want the Crusher for smash attack, the Fold Over for multi-shots, the Celerity for attack speed, a 5-star rage trammel for crit damage and trigger probability, the trammel for trigger probability, the Tyranny for crit damage, a 4-star rage trammel for crit damage and trigger probability, and the focus for crit chance. These wedges will increase her smash attack speed, trigger probability, multi-shots, and crit by a tremendous amount, which will be good for her very small sub DPS. For her teams, she'll be able to be used in pretty much any team because her damage buffs and heals are beneficial to everyone, and she'll be even better with characters that provide skill damage buffs like the unreleased character Fushu, because that's what her sub DPS and healing scale off of. She'll also be good in Outsider and Psyche teams because she can provide a resolve buff when 2 characters on the same team share the same attributes. For her Introns, her I1 makes it so that she only consumes 2.5 passion for work points per second. This will be really good for her ultimate uptime, meaning that it'll also be good for her sanity maintenance and sub DPS. For her I2, it increases her allies' attack by 3% of her max HP, up to 300 attack for 10 seconds after using her skill. This Intron is going to add a ton of value to her supportive capabilities, since this attack boost is extremely powerful. For her I4, it increases her heavyweight stacks from 10 to 20, meaning that she can now get 200% more damage and 40% more damage reduction. It also makes it so that she instantly gets the max amount of stacks when using her ultimates, which is nice for reducing the ramp up of her now max increased stacks. For her I6, it increases her skill damage by 45% up to 135% for 15 seconds every time she picks up a Dewdrop, Ammo Supply, or Valve Volatile, which is going to increase her sub DPS tremendously. Now, should you invest into Truffle and Filbert? Well, like I said, Truffle and Filbert are arguably the best supports in the game because of their damage dealt buff and their attack buff at I2. Not to mention, they can also heal and provide a resolve boost, which is really good with one of the strongest DPS characters, Psyche. But I will say that in a couple of patches from now, their value will definitely go down, since Fushu will be able to provide around a 200% skill damage buff alongside other supportive abilities, and Fina can provide around a 45% damage buff alongside a 15% Lumino damage buff, and other supportive capabilities according to the CBT. Thus, as of right now, only Daphne is Truffle and Filbert's competition, but in a couple of patches, Truffle and Filbert might only be used as an alternative in a lot of teams other than in Anemo teams. Anyways, that's all I've got for today. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you wish to know more, you can click on the video to the right. With that being said, goodbye.